Hello, everyone. Inside today's Locked On Canadiens, the Montreal Canadiens are interested in trading up in the upcoming NHL Draft. Samuel Montembeault seems to want to stay in Montreal. What does an extension for him look like? And it is Friday. That means it is time for the Friday Mailbag. We have all that and more inside today's show.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 868 of Locked On Canadiens. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. We are your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day of the week, wherever you get your daily podcast, whether that be Google, Apple, Spotify, or if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe there. And I am telling you this now because we've been telling you all week, and we announced it on Twitter last night. You are going to want to be subbed to our YouTube channel because tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, that is 6:30 in the Central, I believe, or Mountain. I'm not very good at time zone, but the point
7:30 Central.
There we go. So the point of the matter here is we have a full live show with our good friend Tony Ferrari of the Hockey News, one of our favorite guests. We're just going to talk draft stuff. Nothing in particular. We're going to take listener questions. We're going to hang out for about an hour, have a good time, so y'all can get your questions in that we might not get to in this episode. But I've been blathering on now for almost 2 minutes. I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Matlin. I'm joined, as always, by the active stick, Laura Saba. And Laura, coming off an episode with David St. Louis on Wednesday. That was a huge hit with our listeners. And we've got so much more today now to get into. But first, how are you doing on what is a very nice Thursday, at least here in Buffalo?
It's a little humid here, but you know what? I don't mind that you quote-unquote rambled on because it was about Tony. We love Tony Ferrari. We absolutely adore him. We cannot wait to hang out with him. I mean, really, we're bringing him to the listeners, but selfishly, I'm excited to hang out with our buddy.
Yeah, it's going to be a really, really good time. So make sure you subscribe to us there. We will be live. We are working on getting used to our new recording studio and how that does live episodes. So there may be a hiccup here or there, but we promise it'll be great. We have plenty to get to in today's show, though. Stuff that we did not talk about in our last episode because we kept that draft focused for the most part. And I suppose the biggest news here is the Montreal Canadiens are interested in trading up in the upcoming NHL Draft. We've heard they want to trade with the Sharks. They want to trade with Columbus. They want to trade all the way up for Adam Fantilli, allegedly, to which I say, yes, please. If you're not going to take Smith or Mishkov, if Smith is there at 5 and you want Fantilli, you know what? Go for it. Because you have your 1, 2, and 3 centers for next year. In that case, I think Fantilli could play pro next year. Wouldn't be opposed to him going back to the NCAA. But my first thought is, if they ask for Kirby Dach in a trade to move up, let's say 5th Kirby Dach and, a Jaden Struble level prospect, are you saying yes to that, Laura, or is that too rich for your blood?
For Adam Fantilli, no way. I would say yes to that. I love Kirby Dach. Again, I adore him. But no, it's Fantilli. If it was some other guy, I would question. But it's not some guy. It's Adam Fantilli.
And that's the part is it's if they're trading up for Will Smith, I don't like giving up Kirby Dach in that trade for that because you're moving up one spot and you're surrendering a guy who makes your current team better. Currently. Not that Kirby Dach wouldn't make the future Canadiens better too, but Adam Fantilli is a hell of a piece to add there. And my biggest thought is if this is Kent Hughes' plan, and we know he likes to go bold at the draft, hence Kirby Dach in the first place, I'm about it. And I'm wondering if Kent Hughes, though, is looking at the market here. Anaheim, Pat Verbeek is a relatively new GM, and so is Kent Hughes. Jarmo Kekalainen is one of the longest tenured GMs, if not the longest tenured GM in the NHL, which is a wild thought. And Mike Grier, who is also relatively new. And it's an inconsistent group there. They haven't exactly lit the world on fire trade-wise, especially Jarmo Kekalainen as of late. And Mike Grier, hit or miss depending on what Sharks fans say. I'm wondering if Kent Hughes senses a weakness that he can get out of this. Yeah, he's going to give up 5 and something to move up in the draft. But I'm wondering if he's thinking he can swing a deal here. And if he moves up to 4, they're taking Smith. But if they move up even further than that, the world is their oyster. He's got something is cooking here. There's too much smoke for me to not think about Kent Hughes is possibly trying to make something happen here with GMs who are available to, I don't want to say fleeced, but I'm going to say fleeced anyways.
I think here's the thing is that I'm wondering how this is a thing. Like there has to be smoke, right? There has to be something going on. Like I don't think that it would be reported if it was like people were laughing and hanging up in his face, right? And that's the thing. I admire very much what the Canadiens are trying to do. I don't know that any GM ahead of them would necessarily want to trade down, especially if you know who the Canadiens want. Like if you get a sense for who they want, because the initial story was that the Canadiens were trying to trade into the top 4. So in my mind, I'm like, all right, they want whoever San Jose said they wanted, right? Like that was in my head. And then it's like, actually, no, they're trying to get into the top 4. They actually are trying to get like the top 2 pick. They know Chicago's never going to trade the Bedard pick, right? But clearly they see something, not that they see something, clearly they see something about Anaheim or Columbus where either they're looking elsewhere. Maybe they know that Anaheim wants Michkov. Maybe that's the thing, and they're not interested. They said that that's probably not the route that they're going to go, but the more time goes on, the more it feels like a no-brainer that they should at least consider this, right? And so for me, maybe they don't want Michkov, or they know that somebody else wants him more than they want Fantilli, or more than they want Carlson. So they think that the player that they want is going to be available at whatever spot they're trying to move to, because otherwise it doesn't necessarily make sense to make a trade. You have to have a feeling that the other team is going to be willing to play. And how many teams do you know that are in the top 4 that would want to trade down? Like you got to give them something that they want, or it's got to be that no other guy interests them except for that one that's going to be available at second.
And I guess that's it. Like they're swinging high. Like obviously they would love to trade for first overall, but Bedard is going to cost you Lane Hudson and +5 or something like that. And are you prepared as an organization who has a special player in Lane Hudson to make that trade? And Chicago might just hang up and say, it doesn't matter what you offer us. The answer is no. I am very curious what becomes of this because, like you said, there's too much smoke around this. There's been tweets saying they're interested in Benson, Michkov, and Smith. And maybe this is all just a diversion to, maybe they trade down a spot and they do this to somebody else. Kent Hughes is not a dumb GM, at least not from what we've seen so far. So I am really, really excited to kind of see where this goes. We do have to shift gears here a little bit because we have potential extension news. And no, it's not Raphael Harvey-Pinard. It is one of the goalies. We're going to talk about that coming up in our next segment. But first, today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Bird Dogs. Folks, Bird Dogs make you look great. And I mean truly great. Comfortable khaki shorts for all situations. Sweat wicking fabric on the inside. So you stay cool in the summer and you look great doing it. Like I said, I've worn them around the house. I got to walk the dog. I got to do chores. And I'm comfortable. I wore them wine tasting and I looked great, kept cool all day. It is the absolute best of both worlds here. And if you go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL, you're going to get a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL for a free Yeti style tumbler. You're not going to want to take your Bird Dogs off at any point this summer. Trust us. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. And remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a live show tomorrow with Tony Ferrari, and you're not going to want to miss it. If you miss it, we don't want to hear about how you missed it because we told you about it. And if you hear clanging and banging in the background, my dog is having the zoomies right now. So we're just going to have to deal with that as we go here. we just got done with Cole Caulfield's extension, like less than 2 weeks ago, 10 days, whatever it was at this point. It wasn't Monday, was it? No, it was last week. Anyways, the point of this all is that the Montreal Canadiens have an unexpected UFA, not this season, but next season on their hands. And I'm talking about goaltender Samuel Montembeault. And this quote comes from Arpon Basu in The Athletic. And this is the direct quote from Sam Montembeault. Probably not. I love being here. Sam Montembeault, when asked if he exploring unrestricted free agency a year from now would be enticing, his agent hopes to start contract extension talks with the Montreal Canadiens at the draft. And my thought is simply, yeah. I love the idea of Samuel Montembeault kind of being a lost soul, getting claimed on waivers, and then having a bit of a career revival, resurgence, life preserver. I don't know what it was here in Montreal. He had an up and down first year where he's playing injured on one of the worst team in the NHL. And then last year where he was a pretty solid tandem goalie with Jake Allen when they were both healthy. So my first question is, Laura, how long are you thinking is a fair extension for Samuel Montembeault? Because we don't really know what his level is. We've kind of seen where his peak can be a little bit, but we haven't seen that consistently. And I'm inclined to say, do you offer him a 3-year extension? And we'll discuss money in a little bit here, but 3 years seems like a pretty safe bet for a guy like that with the prospects they have in the pool right now.
Well, when you said, like, when you were about to throw it to me, you said Laura, and I knew that question was coming. Instinctually, the first number that popped into my head was 3. 3 years seems fair because in 3 years, he's either going to be showing us that he's, the number one. He's either going to like have commanding control of the number one spot because, he had a lot of promise. He showed a lot of promise. And then he also had some rough patches. And you can see like 3 years is good enough for you to know if he can be consistent or not. And that to me, it's also because the Canadiens are not in a rush, right? What they need to do is not worry too much about signing him for 3 years and whether that's too long. What they need to do is figure out what the plan is after that. Because if he's the weak link, the Canadiens aren't necessarily going to make the playoffs next year or the year after that. It's not like it's going to be one of those situations where at the moment that they're ready to start making the playoffs, they're immediately going to get, have goaltending let them down. We've seen that happen with so many teams where this team showed promise. They were a juggernaut, and then all of a sudden, like a Jerry happened or whatever. So we don't want that. And so they're not in danger of that if they take that time with him now, but they need to ensure that at the same time that they're giving him this 2 or 3 year extension, I think 3 years is fair. They need to figure out who the next guy is and how far away that next guy is from contending. Because your choices are going to be that person waits a little longer and you extend Samuel Montembeault again to be the goaltender of this team, or you say goodbye to him and you bring up that next guy at the same time that a lot of the young players are starting to hit their stride.
And I am looking at Puckpedia right now in the background. If you see my eyes kind of glancing off screen here, his agent is Paul Corbet of Parafait Sports Management. He has 5 total players under contract. Samuel Montembeault is his second biggest client behind Yanni Gourde of the Seattle Kraken. And I look at this and I think to myself, last year, 342 goals against, 901 save percentage, a league average save percentage here. He's making $1 million against the cap this year. If you offer him 3 years and say 2.1 per, we know the cap is rising a little bit this offseason, but it won't hit until that next major jump is supposed to be that 2024 offseason when this contract expires. If you get him for 3 years, like you said, that gives you enough time to, one, we will know what Caden Primo is or is not at that point. We will know what Jakob Dobish likely is by that point. If they have drafted somebody in this upcoming draft, we will have some idea of where they will be at here. Jake Allen in this time frame is likely gone at this point. All loved Jake Allen in his time here. He was a very good, serviceable backup to Carey Price. Did well when healthy in a tandem here. And Samuel Montembeault, looking at this right now, he turns 27 in October. Takes you right up to 30. I hesitate going beyond 3 years because if he's cheap at 3 years, okay. If God forbid you have to waive him at any point in time, let's say Caden Primo and whoever they pick in this draft turn out to be great NHL starters and Montembeault falls back into being like an 880 goalie. With that kind of term, you waive him. He goes to the AHL. You don't worry about it. I think they're going to find a pretty team-friendly deal here. And I'm curious above all else, can this upward trajectory continue? Because I look at his overall numbers and they haven't been super great. He is, there was a reason he was on waivers for so long. Or not so long, but why he was on waivers at all. And it's because he was an inconsistent NHL player. And ironically, the guy who took his job in the minors in Seattle or in Springfield is now the ECHL goalie for the Canadiens organization, which is just a weird turnabout here, all things considered. If he continues his upward trajectory and becomes, let's say, a 906, 908 goalie next year, and he's making $1 million, and then you've signed him to a multi-year extension, $2 million per, and he levels out at about 908, 910 at like his peak. You're doing pretty well for yourself. And this seems like a really good instance of player wants to stay, has no interest in testing the unrestricted free agency market right now. And the Canadiens probably want him back. Montembeault's been featured. He was with the F1 goaltender today with the Grand Prix coming up. He's been around a lot. Why not? It makes too much sense for this to not happen. And like I said, July 1st, I would not be shocked if there is a new deal in place. One of the first things the Canadiens do is announce we have extended Samuel Montembeault for 2 years at this point. I think that's absolutely a thing that's going to happen. Or 3 years at this point.
2 or 3. I feel like we say 3, the Canadiens are going to say 2.
Yeah, which, okay, fine. That's perfectly okay. I'm not stressing the years. I'm stressing what the money might be. I don't think they're going to overpay him because he hasn't quite proven that much yet in that regard. So I'm curious. What do you folks, our listeners, want, a Montembeault extension to come into? Or do you not even want a Samuel Montembeault extension? Let us know. Tweet us at LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. Make sure you're following us on social so you get notified when we go live with Tony Ferrari on Friday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. It is time, though. It is Friday, and Friday always means it is time for the Friday mailbag, and we are going to dive into all of your questions coming up next. But first, if you've ever stressed trying to find tickets for any kind of event, whether that be the theater, whether it be baseball games, whether it be just a local concert, Game Time has you covered with the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets. Go to Game Time right now. Check it out. You can see where your seat is. You can get a view of that. You are going to get flash deals on all of these local events, and you get the lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection for any reason whatsoever. It's hard to not love this with Game Time. I know how stressful it is trying to buy tickets for events. So just go download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Some terms do apply, but all you got to do is create an account with the Game Time app, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first order. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We are back at Locked On Canadiens. As always, we are a show about our listeners. We love answering your questions, getting questions, and topic ideas from all of you. So if you ever want to send us mailbag questions or suggest topic ideas, at LO_Canadiens on Twitter, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. If you need more letters to, I almost called it members. That's not the right word, but whatever characters, there we go, to submit, what an idea is or a question that you have, feel free to do so. Just don't be rude. That's all we ask. Laura, we've got time for a handful of questions. If we don't get to some of them today, we will have plenty next week as we start ramping up closer and closer to the draft, and we're looking for a little bit of fun stuff to relax during that. But where are we starting at today?
Speaking of fun, here's a question from Twitter from Matt Varkan on Twitter. Habs beach party. Who do you think brings what? Who's the grill master? Who's the DJ, etc.?
I feel like the grill and I always default to this. I feel like Joel Edmondson is the grill master. If Carey Price were still an active member of the Montreal Canadiens, you default to Carey Price is cooking everything. And I think no one would argue with that on this team here. As for the DJ, I think Cole Caulfield's just taking the Spotify over and you can't stop him. Like Edmondson or Anderson or someone else might try and stop him. Cole Caulfield's your DJ, whether you like it or not at this point. Though apparently Joel Edmondson. Ooh.
Sorry, you were saying though apparently Joel Edmondson. Yeah, Joel Edmondson is like the DJ of the team in the locker room. But here, hot take, I think Nick Suzuki would be the grill master. Nick Suzuki is one of those underage dads. You know yes. The guy I'm talking about. Everybody has a friend like this. Early 20s, more dad than you. Yeah. So that's Nick Suzuki. But I think who brings the cooler?
I want to say Jake Allen. Jake Allen seems like the outdoorsy type based on what his charity basket looked like. I think that he would bring a real nice Yeti style cooler. They're big, filled to the brim with wobble pops and other things such as that.
Who brings the vegan food?
Rem Pitlick. Right? It's Rem Pitlick. Come on. Like and this is not a shot at vegans. It's just I look at Rem Pitlick and that dude goes, I found this great hamburger substitute. And it's just going to be Joel Edmondson staring across the grill going, you found what? And just kind of staring incredulously at him. So
who makes the potato salad?
David Savard.
I'm getting so into this right now. David Savard gets okay. What does Brendan Gallagher do? This is my thing. Does he bring like beach volleyball?
Brendan Gallagher falls in the pool. Or gets pushed into the pool. Brendan Gallagher is the guy that gets picked on at this event. So, which tends to be the way that we go a lot of the time with Brendan Gallagher in these events.
All right. So I need to move on from this, even though I would want to talk about it for an entire segment. Allison on Twitter asks, here's a fun mailbag question. If you had to work out with one current Hab for a day, who would it be and why? And how sore would you be the next day?
I'm trying to figure out who the fitness freak is on this team. Like, I don't see a lot of them posting like gym photos. Like in the past, like PK Subban was like the gym bro for this team here. I'm trying to figure out who's going to be that guy. Like,
For me, I wouldn't pick the gym bro. I would pick Cole Caulfield just because he's like super fun.
Yeah.
And kind of light, and it would be really funny. But I would be extremely sore the next day. Like I was tempted to pick like which guy works out the least, and I want to work out with that guy. But no, like I think it would be fun to work out with Cole Caulfield. Like he just make it fun and entertaining. I wonder if like the guy who's like the biggest gym bunny is somebody underrated.
I feel someone like a Christian Dvorak. Josh Anderson probably hits the gym a lot. I mean, look at the guy. Like, he's someone I think would be if I wanted to like have a hard workout, I think I would pick Josh Anderson in that regard if that's really what I wanted to go for.
Like I feel like before the injuries, Joel Edmondson was that guy too. Like he definitely gives me that vibe where he takes it very seriously. So we've got a lot of fun questions today. There's a couple of more intense questions that we have to prep for, so those are coming next week. So here's one from Charles on Twitter that we got via direct message. Hello, mailbag question. It is quite clear that Martin St. Louis' first speech to the team was legendary. What cherished inanimate object or collectible tchotchke would you trade to have a transcript of what he said to the players? Now, I definitely would have wanted to have been there. All right, let's see what you've got.
So I have had this thing since I was a kid. This has been like my good luck charm. I got this as a gift for my 8th birthday. So it has always kind of been around one way, shape, or form. given how often we've heard that first speech reference from Caulfield and Suzuki and other players, and not just young guys either, like veterans here who are like, I want to know if this was just like Martin St. Louis came in and was like, F-bomb this and this and this, or if he just came in and he was just kind of like the inch by inch speech from Any Given Sunday, and everyone's like, hell yeah, I love that movie because sports, and it just clicked because sports brain after all. I really do hope that like it is, I'm sure it is recorded somewhere. I have no doubt that someone in the Canadiens organization has a video of that speech, which if you do, I will Venmo you however much money you are looking for the chance to hear that. I will not post it publicly. I just want to know what it was, because it's attained like a cult status, and we don't even know what was said during this.
For me, so I've got a couple of quirky bobbleheads that are just weird, but there's so few of them out there that I feel like, you know, they're sort of valuable in that way. I have a bobblehead of Brian Burke from the Toronto Marlies. And I also have a bobblehead of Jaromir Jagr when he was on the Florida Panthers. And I feel like those two are probably like two things that yes, Scott.
No, I'm just wiping my forehead. I was like, that's two very different ends of things. You have Brian Burke, the Toronto Marlies AHL bobblehead, and like quite possibly the second greatest player to ever play the game of hockey as a bobblehead, as a Florida Panther, no less. Like,
yep. It's honestly like it's one of my most treasured possessions. It's so weird, right? It's so quirky and weird. It's so cool. And I thank the people working for those teams that sent those to me. And at the time, like the social media, like honestly, be nice to the social media people of your favorite hockey teams, because that's the kind of thing that happens. So do we have time for one more, Scott?
1, 2 if they're short.
Okay, so we have this question is another Ted Lasso question, and it comes from Ryan Lee on Twitter. And the question is, hold on, it's quite clear. Oh no, this wasn't Ryan. It wasn't Ryan Lee. I'm so sorry. It was Robert Rice, because Ryan Lee responded to the question, or he came up with the Danny Rojas question. So Robert Rice asks us, it is agreed that Cole Caulfield is the Danny Rojas of the Canadiens. Who would be the Jan Maas? Just absolutely blunt and without filter in the locker room. So our friend Patrick Bexell says that has to be Matheson.
I feel like,
and Ryan Lee says it's Juraj Slafkovsky. Sorry.
I absolutely think it is Juraj Slafkovsky too, just because he has that same, he's always kind of had that bluntness to him, which is not, it's a very, and I mean this in the kindest way possible. It is a European trait. It's like when people ask Leo Carlsson what he knew about Columbus, he says, well, I know where it is on a map. He's not trying to be rude.
People got so mad.
He's not trying to be rude. He's being honest and just direct. I think Slafkovsky is a great pick for that. It used to be Thomas Plekanec. Like Thomas Plekanec had the driest sense of humor in the world, and it slayed me every single time. So, but I do think that Slafkovsky is a good bet. Someone also I think said Yoel Armia would be a good one too, just because one, similar stature and everything there. So I think Slafkovsky is a good shout. I definitely think the best possible option for that.
So final question from Ryan Lee. So Ryan also he answered the question, but also he came up with a nice question of his own. What level of chaos would there be if Michael Andlauer's shares of the Montreal Canadiens ends up with Ryan Reynolds?
So I was thinking about this, and I didn't tweet this thought because verbalizing every thought in my head is not always a good thing. The Canadiens, in the funniest possible thing, getting Snoop Dogg or Ryan Reynolds to be a minority owner of the Canadiens is absolutely the funniest outcome here. Like, yeah, it's great. You found a new owner for the Sens. We found the fun people you thought you were getting here. And I, as someone who has greatly enjoyed Welcome to Wrexham and watching Wrexham get out of the National League to League Two, and the work that Reynolds and Rob McElhenney have done with that team, Ryan Reynolds as part owner of the Montreal Canadiens would be amazing. And I would absolutely be here for that, just for the amount of pure, just schadenfreude that would happen on Twitter afterwards with that.
They
So
should get together, and then half should go to Snoop and half should go to Ryan Reynolds.
the gang buys a share in the Montreal Canadiens. I'm all about that. As always, if you want to tweet us your mailbag questions at LO_Canadians on Twitter, LockedOnCanadians@gmail.com. We know we didn't get to everything today. We have plenty of time next week to get to the rest of the deeper mailbag questions. Make sure you are following us wherever you get your daily podcast, Google, Apple, Spotify. We are there, free and available every weekday for you as part of the Locked On Network. And I cannot stress this enough. If you are not subscribed to the Locked On Canadiens YouTube channel, well, you're doing it wrong. You're failing at a lot of things, and you're going to want to be there 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Laura, myself, Tony Ferrari. It is a draft special live episode. We will be live for that. It'll be in your feed the next morning as well, in case you missed it for whatever reason. Shame on you if you do. Please make sure you are tuned in and following on all those things. Folks, we will see you all next time.